My name is Isabel Martin. I am 61 years old, and I live alone in a small whitewashed cottage on the wild coast of Galicia, Spain. This cottage is more than stone and mortar. It is the place where I was born, where I learned to walk, where my father repaired fishing nets by lamplight, and where my mother baked bread whose scent seemed to wrap around the whole village. It is the place where I married my husband, Andres, and where I raised my only child, Mateo. The walls here have memory. They carry laughter and footsteps, whispers, lullabies, and arguments that seemed so big at the time but now feel small in the distance of years. When I press my ear to the cool plaster, I can almost hear the echoes of life. Yet these days, silence has become the loudest sound of all. Andres, my husband, passed away 9 years ago. A heart that had been strong and steady simply faltered one afternoon, leaving me in a house suddenly too large for a single soul. The rooms stretched wider, the nights grew colder, and even the light seemed harsher. I kept living through rituals. I cleaned the same shelves, watered the geraniums he had planted, folded his shirts though I knew no one would wear them. His chair still sits by the window, a book still resting on the armrest. Sometimes I reach out to touch the spine, pretending he has only stepped out for a moment and will return to finish his reading. Grief has its own clock. At first it is relentless, waking you every hour, knocking the air from your lungs. Later it grows quieter but never disappears. You learn to live with it, as one learns to live with a scar. My son, Mateo, left for Australia at the age of 20. He said it was only for university, just a few years. But the years stretched into decades. He became an engineer, found work, married a woman named Claire, and had 2 daughters I have only seen in photographs. In the beginning, his voice was a regular guest in my days. Letters, emails, long phone calls where he. One gray afternoon, when gulls cried over the cliffs and the waves battered the shore as if angry at the land, I heard a knock on my door. For years no one had knocked. The post was dropped into the box. Neighbors waved from afar. Visitors belonged to another time. When I opened the door, my heart leapt. Mateo stood there with a suitcase at his side. He looked older than I remembered, thinner, with dark crescents under his eyes. Yet he was unmistakably my son, the same mouth that had once kissed my cheek 1,000 times, the same eyes that once lit up when I baked almond cake. I pulled him into my arms before he could even speak. For a moment, the silence of 9 years broke open into joy. Inside, I made tea and brought out the almond biscuits I had been saving for some future celebration. He sat at the kitchen table, glancing around at the familiar walls. "It's all the same," he said. "Only quieter," I replied. We didn't speak much at first. Too many words crowded the air, too much unsaid. But later he explained. Life had been too busy, work deadlines, bills, responsibilities, pressure to succeed. He had missed me, he said, but distance had become habit. I tried not to blame him. But deep inside, the cracks left by his absence ached. Then he said something that shocked me. "Mother, come with me to Australia. You shouldn't live alone anymore. The girls want to meet you. There's space for you in our house." The words filled me with light and fear all at once. Could I leave this cottage, this land, these walls soaked in memory? Every teacup, every picture frame held meaning. Yet Mateo was my only child. I had dreamed of being near him again. That night I lay awake remembering his childhood, his tiny hand gripping mine, his feet pattering across these same floors, his laughter filling the air. Could I abandon the home that had shaped those memories? But in the morning, Mateo grew serious. "This house is old, Mother. It's far from help. It's time to sell and move forward. The money can help you begin again with us." I looked at him, at the boy I had nursed and the man he had become. I wanted to believe this was the answer to my prayers. The following days moved like a dream. I packed my clothes, donated furniture, gave away dishes. I kept only a small suitcase with a few dresses, my prayer book, and Andre's scarf. Mateo helped with the paperwork. The cottage was sold. The money transferred into his account for the move, he said. When I closed the door for the last time, I kissed the wall and whispered goodbye to Andres. At the airport, Mateo told me to sit while he arranged a wheelchair to take me to the gate. 5 minutes, he said, and walked away with my suitcase. I waited. 5 minutes stretched to 10. 10 to 20. 30. My heart began to sink. When I asked at the counter, the attendant said no one had requested a wheelchair. An officer approached. I told him my son had gone to fetch help but had not returned. He listened carefully, asked for Mateo's name and photo. He checked, then returned with eyes full of pity. "Señora," he said softly, "your son boarded the flight. Alone." The words struck like thunder. My body went cold. My son had abandoned me. The officer's name was Tomas Rivas. He stayed with me as I trembled in the crowded terminal. When he asked if I had anyone to call, I shook my head. No husband, no relatives, no friends nearby. Nothing left. "Then come with me," he said. "You can't stay here alone." I hesitated. But his voice was steady, his eyes honest. I followed. Tomas drove me to a modest home where his wife, Maria, opened the door. She was surprised, but welcomed me warmly. She gave me a blanket, a cup of real tea, and later clean towels and pajamas. She placed a plant by the window of the guest room for peace. For the first time in weeks, I slept. Days passed gently in their home. Tomas worked long hours, but always returned with something small for me: fruit, a puzzle book, a scarf. Maria treated me like a mother, not a guest. Then one evening Tomas came home pale. I overheard his hushed words to Maria. "Flight Q78. It crashed. No survivors." The same flight Mateo had boarded. I staggered, but I did not scream. Though my son had betrayed me, he was still the boy I once cradled. I wept that night for him, for the loss, for the betrayal, for the little boy who once shouted, "Mama, look," as he ran through the garden. Yet I also wept with gratitude. Because in my darkest moment, strangers had given me shelter, care, and dignity. Weeks turned into months. Maria included me slowly in her life, folding laundry, baking bread, planting a garden. Tomas built me a bench beside the rosemary and lavender. They began calling me Tia Isabel. At the community center, I started teaching cooking classes: lentil stew, empanadas, rice. The students listened not only to recipes, but also to stories about Andres, about my garden, about Mateo. They called me Dona Isabel. One girl said, "You should write your life down." So I bought a blue notebook with white stars and began writing. Each page lifted some of the weight from my chest. One evening, Tomas found the notebook on the table. He didn't open it. He just placed a bookmark inside and said, "When you're ready to share, I'll be here." Seasons passed. I became known in the market. Children hugged me at the center. People sought my stew when they were sick. I still thought of Mateo, but I no longer asked why. I prayed simply, "I hope you found peace." One afternoon, Tomas brought home a photo frame. It held a picture of the three of us, me, Tomas, and Maria, sitting on a park bench. Underneath, in careful handwriting, he had written, "Nuestra Isabel. Nuestra familia." I cried, but not from sorrow. From healing. Years have passed now. I am no longer the woman waiting in silence by the sea. I am a woman who has learned that family is not only blood. Family is whoever stays when life breaks you. If Mateo had not left, if betrayal had not cut so deep, I would never have found Tomas and Maria. I would never have discovered that sometimes what breaks us also opens us. And so, I sit in a garden that smells of rosemary, write in a notebook covered with stars, and whisper to myself, I was not destroyed. I was remade. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.